everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same, opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet, all truths are but half-truths, all paradoxes may be reconciled. The Kybalion. Greetings mortals, and capital day to you all. I am your host Simon, and this is the Library of Gnosis. Valentinus assumed, as the beginning of all things, the primal being, or Bythos, who after ages of silence and contemplation, gave rise to other beings by a process of emanation. The first series of beings, the Aeons, were 30 in number, representing 15 zygotes, or pairs of sexually complementary. The first generation was Bythos, the One, and Siege, silence. At this primordial level, beings are created in pairs. In Gnostic lores, these are called Aeons. So when God was created ex nihilo, out of nothing, nothing had to exist first. This is the goddess Namu, the primeval saltwater sea. Anu is the freshwater. You could think of it this way. In one way, Anu always existed. But for Anu to have always existed, there needed to be a vacuum for him to exist in. So Namo came into being at the same time as Anu. One gives birth to the other, like a reflection. They mix like oil and water. It is a chicken or the egg kind of question. Namu gave birth to Anu, but it was Anu who impregnated her. Women give birth to men, and men impregnate the women in return. One gives birth to the other, because for one to exist, the other has to as well. The yin and the yang. In quantum physics, there is something called reverse causality. Basically, it means the effect precedes the cause. It is like something in the future is pulling the past forward. McKenna called this the great attractor. Maybe this is what people call destiny. You take two different routes, but you end up in the same place. You know, before you take a definite form, acquire a sort of ego that separates you from the world, become born in a way to speak. Before that, you are just limitless potential. This limitless potential is not your God, I hope. Makes you wonder if this oblivion of limitless potential was what the Buddha was fleeing into. To me, God is Anu. He looks like a human, because he is the father of all, and Namu is the mother of all, and the gods that created us. According to the god list, An Anum, Tablet 1, line 28, Namu bears the title, Mother who gave birth to the heavens and the earth. Because this goddess's name is written with the sign for cosmic subterranean waters, Sumerian Enger, Viggerman has called her the Cosmic Ocean. No husband or male god is attested in connection with Nama, thus leading to the belief that the first cosmic production is asexual. In the Sumerian poem of Enki and Ninmah, Nama is called the original mother who gave birth to the gods of the universe. Again, according her primary status among all the gods and describing her role in Mesopotamian cosmogony. Later on, particularly in Akkadian texts, Nama loses importance and is only rarely mentioned. In the god list An-Anum, Nama is identified as the mother of the god Enki, which clearly accords her, at least originally, a higher or more ancient status than that of her son. In an inscription dating to the early dynastic 3rd period, King Lugal Kisal-Si, a king of Uruk, dedicated a temple to the goddess, who is described as the spouse of An, the god of heavens. Except for Anu and Ki, Namu only had one other child, Enki, the god of water and wisdom, who is said to have created humans, on behalf of his mother Namu, who whispered it in his ear while he slept. He made humans in the image of the gods. We are their descendants. In this context, Enki represents the intermediary between the divine and the mortal, bridging the gap between the gods and humanity. This act of creation further illustrates the interplay of opposites, the divine and the mundane. I have heard somebody say that he thinks they are 9-dimensional beings, or density, or however that works. The place they exist in is referred to as the Anu heaven in the Sumerian texts. It is the place where the all-seeing god Anu sits on his throne. Just observing, waiting for the day his son shall once again put on the flesh. There is something called kenosis, or the self-emptying of Jesus' own will. Basically, Jesus overcame his own ego. He defeated Satan in single combat in heaven, when he was called Mikael, and he did it again when he was on earth, the devil inside. Jesus said that he has nothing in him, and that has always stuck with me. His soul is so pure that nothing can corrupt him. Satan promised him all the kingdoms of the earthly world to go against God. And he just told that annoying bastard to get gone. You got nothing in me at all. Enlil was the military leader of the Anunnaki. That is why they call him king. But Anu was always regarded as the supreme god, and the major god lists such as An-Anum place him on top of the pantheon. He could be described as the king of the gods, and was believed to be the source of all legitimate power, who bestowed the right to rule upon gods and kings alike. The highest god in the pantheon was said to possess the Anutu or Anuti, which means heavenly power, or more literally, Anuship. In the Babylonian Enuma Elish, the gods praise Marduk, shouting, "Your word is Anu." I misremembered this as being called Antu, and when I started searching the Wikipedia page on Anu, again to find that quote I just mentioned, I stumbled upon that exact term. Yeah, the coincidence of getting freaky at this point. There turns out to be a goddess by that name called Antu, or Antum, who was a Mesopotamian goddess regarded as the feminine counterpart and spouse of the sky god. Antu's name is etymologically an Akkadian feminine derivative of the theonym Anu. The cuneiform sign representing the latter name, An, in addition to designating the sky god, could also function as an ordinary noun, read as either An, heaven, or Dingir, deity. Antu was accordingly functioned as the feminine counterpart of Anu. She was also regarded as his spouse. Cases of Anu and Antu being equated with each other are attested to. Paul Eilen Bailu interprets this as an indication the cuneiform sign An could be used as a logogram, sumerogram, to represent the name of Antu. However, as noted by Manfred Krabernik, it is also possible that the sky was at some point envisioned as an androgynous being in Mesopotamian tradition. While already attested in the 3rd millennium BCE, she was only a minor goddess, and only came to be worshipped commonly in Uruk in the Achaemenian and Seleucid periods, due to religious reforms which elevated her and Anu to the position of tutelary deities of the city. At some point, Antu was also incorporated into the Hurrian religion, in which she was understood as a primeval deity. Antu was sometimes identified with the earth rather than the sky, though such references are not common. Another goddess that was said to be the wife of Anu was Uras, a Mesopotamian goddess regarded as the personification of the earth. She is well attested in association with Anu, most commonly as his spouse, though traditions according to which she was one of his ancestors or even his alternative name are also known. She could be equated with other goddesses who could be considered his wives, namely Ki and Antu, though they were not always regarded as identical. Numerous deities were regarded as the children of Urash and Anu, for example Ninsina and Ishkur. However, in some cases multiple genealogies exist. For example, Enki was usually regarded as the son of Namu and Geshinana of Dutur, even though texts describing them as children of Urash exist. The precise origin of the name Urash is a matter of dispute, though it is agreed that regardless of whether it originated in Sumerian or Akkadian, it was understood as earth or tilth. Urash was accordingly considered the deification of the earth. A tradition in which Urash was an ancestor of Anu is also known. For example, from the god list mentioned before, An-Anum, a genealogy of Anu which Wilfred G. Lambert refers to as the Theogony of Anu, mentions the pair Urash, here a male cosmogonic earth deity, and Ninurash, his female counterpart. Lambert speculated that in this context, Urash might have been viewed as a descendant of either Namu or eternal time. He suggests the primordial deities Duri and Dari, whose name, while attested in Sumerian texts, were loanwords derived from the Akkadian phrase ever and ever, might have represented the latter concept. A number of texts treat Urash as the name of Anu himself, have represented the later concept. A number of texts treat Urash as the name of Anu himself, which is presumed to be related to the infrequent use of the word Urash to refer to heaven rather than earth, attested for example in Nabinitu, but the details of these developments are unknown. Urash has been characterized as a primeval deity, comparable in that regard to Anu or Namu. Namu, Antu, Ki, Urash. I think the reason why Anu has so many wives is that these are different aspects of Namu. These beings can definitely shapeshift. When you take a new appearance and personality, I mean, at what point is that just you? Deities often have multiple aspects and forms. For instance, in Hindu mythology, goddesses like Durga and Kali are considered different manifestations of the same divine principle. Similarly, Anu's consorts might be seen as different aspects of a single divine feminine entity, such embodying different qualities or fulfilling different roles. The concept of one's wife shapeshifting into many forms could also symbolize the multifaceted nature of divinity and the universe. Each form or persona might represent different natural forces, aspects of life, or cosmic principles that Anu, as the sky god, oversees. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. The Kabbalion. Every time a man and a woman has sex in the Bible, it says they knew each other. Heaven was brought down to earth. Sexual attraction is one of the strongest attraction forces in the universe. The primordial eros that gave birth to all. Amongst the Greeks, Eros was seen as so primeval that sometimes he is even thought to have been the first among the Greek gods. I would wager a guess that this is why sodomy is condemned in the Bible. It is death, an inversion of life. It was even punishable by death in the Old Testament. I said that male and female mix like oil and water. By this, I mean that I believe that our soul is either male or female, and can never be the other. In every credible reincarnation story I have ever heard, the people in question always seem to reincarnate into the same gender. Even when you think about the story of Jesus himself. Unless you think he's gonna come down on a white horse from the clouds, he's going to have to put on the flesh again, or reincarnate. And I do not think he's coming back in drag. I think the only way the male and the female soul unites is when a specific soul reunites with the monad, or the primordial possibility from which everything has its origin. The middle point, the ground of being. While researching this, I found out that they have a similar concept in Buddhism, which they call the ground, or base, which is the primordial state. A key concept in Dongshen is the basis, or ground, or primordial state, also called the general ground, or the original ground. Knowledge of this ground is called Rigpa. The basis is the original state, before realization produces Buddhas, and non-realization produces sentient beings. It is atemporal and unchanging, and yet it is noetically potent, giving rise to mind, sense, consciousness, sheshpa, delusion, marigpa, and knowledge, rigpa. Furthermore, Hachel notes that the Dongshen tradition portrays ultimate reality as something which is beyond the concept of one and many. Thus, in Dongshen, the basis is a pure empty consciousness, which is what is needed to be recognized to achieve awakening. According to Smith, the illuminating lamp declares that in Ati Yoga, pristine consciousness is a mere consciousness that apprehends primordial reverberation and the generic basis as the ultimate. In other words, spiritual knowledge in Dongshen is recognizing one's basis. Since the basis transcends time, any temporal language used to describe it, such as primordial, original, and so on, is purely conventional, and does not refer to an actual point in time, but should be understood as indicating a state in which time is not a factor. According to Smith, placing the original basis on a temporal spectrum is therefore a didactic myth. The basis is also not to be confused with the all basis, Kung Xi, or with the fundamental store consciousness, Kung Xi Ram Par Shesh Pa, since these are both samsaric modes of consciousness. Other terms used to describe the basis include obstructed, Mag Gabs Pa, universal, Kun Kub, and omnipresent. The basis is also associated with the term Dharmata, defined as follows. Dharmata, original purity, is free from all proliferation. Since it is unaffected by ignorance, it is free from all obstructions. According to Smith, describing the basis as great original purity, Ka Dag Shen Pu, is the original description which is held to be flawless according to various Dongshen Tantras. The basis is also associated with the primordial or original Buddhahood, also called Samanta Barada, which is said to be beyond time and space itself. Hence, Buddhahood is not something to be gained, but it is an act of recognizing what is already immanent in all sentient beings. In the great commentary of Milamanitra, 8th century, the basis is defined as one's unfabricated mind, Rang Siems Ma Bukhok Pa. As Smith notes, this indicates how the basis is not some transpersonal entity. The basis is therefore not defined as being one thing, i.e. monism, Brahman, etc., since there exists a production of diversity. Regarding this, the realms and transformations of Sound Tantra states, other than compassion arising as diversity, it is not defined as one thing. The Illuminating Lamp commentary explains the pristine consciousness of the basis thus. In Ati, the pristine consciousness, subsumed by the consciousness that apprehends primordial liberation and the abiding basis as ultimate, is inseparable in all Buddhas and all sentient beings as mere consciousness. Since the ultimate pervades them without any nature at all, it is contained within each individual consciousness. The Tibetan master Longchenpa, 1308 to 1364, described the basis as follows. The self-emergent primordial gnosis of awareness, the original primordial empty body of reality, the ultimate truth of the expanse, and the abiding condition of luminously radiant reality, within which such opposites as cyclical existence and transcendent reality, pleasure and suffering, existence and non-existence, being and non-being, freedom and straying, awareness and dimmed awareness, are not found anywhere at all. Moreover, Longchenpa notes that the ground should be understood as a groundless ground, which seems to be a ground, and is posited as so only from a relative perspective, while in the true nature of reality, it is empty of being a ground. Because it has no intrinsic nature, and from the a-relative perspective, the experience of samsara and nirvana seem to arise from it, it is referred to as the ground. Due to the supporting all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, it is the abiding reality called the ultimate universal ground. It is unconditioned and abides as the great primordial purity. Moreover, it supports the phenomenon of samsara, karma, and afflicted emotions in the manner of a non-support. As the sun and space support cloud formations, they abide within a state without contact or connection with the basis. In reality, since there is no intrinsic nature, support and supported are not established. Since it appears as such, it is so designated as the support. Namkhai Norbu, 1938 to 2018, writes that the term basis denotes the fundamental ground of existence, both at the universal level and at the level of the individual, the two being essentially the same. This basis is uncreated, ever pure and self-perfected. It is not something that has to be constructed. However, it remains hidden to the experience of every being affected by the illusion of dualism. Jean-Luc Accard defines the basis as the actual, authentic, abiding mode of the mind. According to Angkor, Dongshan Tantras define the basis as the great primordial purity, Kang Dang Shen Pu. The Tantra of the beautiful auspiciousness define this as the state abiding before authentic Buddhas arose, and before impure sentient beings appeared. On this page, I stumbled across this image. It is an image of the primordial Buddha, Samantabhadra, with his consort, Samantabharadi. These images are said to symbolize the union of space, emptiness, the female aspect, and clarity, awareness, male. This perfectly describes the concept I'm trying to put forward relating to Anu and Namu. Nothingness and somethingness arose at the same time. What existed before Anu and Namu cannot adequately be described by the word nothing, because nothing implies something. It is a nothingness that is so not that it's not even nothing. A transcendental nothingness. Now wrap your head around that. It is not even fair to say that nothing existed before, because time had not begun. Really, we are in the realm of the gods now. Logic breaks down and words begin to fail us. Netti netti, as they say in the East. Namu gives birth to Anu, which impregnates Namu, giving birth to Ki. Just like Osiris siring Horus, impregnating Isis to give birth to himself. We actually have Anu and Namu's Egyptian counterparts. It is Atum and Nun. Nu, watery one, or Nun, the inert one, in ancient Egyptian religion, is the personification of the primordial watery abyss which existed at the time of creation, and from which the creator sun god Ra arose. The ancient Egyptians envisaged the oceanic abyss of the Nun as surrounding a bubble in which the sphere of life is encapsulated, representing the deepest mystery of their cosmogony. In ancient Egyptian creation accounts, the original mound of land comes forth from the waters of the Nun. The Nun is the source of all that appears in a differentiated world, encompassing all aspects of divine and earthly existence. In the Ennead cosmogony, Nun is perceived as transcendent at the point of creation, alongside Atum, the creator god. I originally came up with this exegesis of codependent gods on my own, and I'm still trying to get my head around how it would work. But like releasing the arrow at the same time as you aim, it has to be one motion. You can not do it at a time. They are mutually arising. In the beginning, the universe only consisted of a great chaotic cosmic ocean, and the ocean itself was referred to as Nu. In some versions of this myth, at the beginning of time, Mehet Veret, portrayed as a cow with a sun disk between her horns, gives birth to the sun, said to have risen from the waters of creation and to have given birth to the sun god in some myths. The universe was enwrapped by a vast mass of primordial waters, and the Benben, a pyramid mound, emerged amid this primordial chaos. There was a lotus flower with Benben, and from this, when it blossomed, emerged Ra. There are many versions of the sun's emergence, and it was said to have emerged directly from the mound, or from a lotus flower that grew from the mound, in the form of a heron, falcon, scarab beetle, or human child. In Heliopolis, the creation was attributed to Atum, a deity closely associated with Ra, who was said to have existed in the waters of Nu as an inert potential being. There is not just one great mind, but always two, because unity is a non-dual state. How can you have a mind without things to think about? Anu creates things out of nothing, but first there has to be nothing for him to create things out of, and this is where Namu comes in. The void of possibility that Anu impregnates with things that are to become real. Within every male, there will always be Anu, and within every female, there will always be Namu. They are the source and fountainhead of the masculine and the feminine archetype. In chess, white and black are bitter enemies, but those who move the pieces are usually good friends. Unknown. So the planets and stars we see are the physical representation of these powerful beings. People do not understand how astrology works. Every single planet and star sends out light waves. This is information, a frequency that affects you and everything else around it. They all have roles, archetypes of the one great mind. Our sun might not be the biggest star in the universe, but it is the most powerful one of them all. The central sun that lights up the whole world. They have measured this now. It is called the axis of evil. The orbit between the sun and the earth is the center of the universe. Obviously, one would think this is because of our point of perspective. But trust me, this is the first thing they checked. This is why humans are so important. We are the gardeners of Gaia, and we are doing a terrible job. She is like an old battered whore, but you should have seen her in her prime. Let us hope she can make a full recovery. This is the unification of heaven and earth. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end. Psychopaths are Anu's defective little children. Unruly bastards that refuse to listen. His own military leader mutinied against him and took with him 1/3 of the angels in heaven, chosen for his battle prowess. Enlil was crowned king, proving his steel in combat and coming up on top. Anu was impressed by this and picked him to be his military general, or the left hand of God, the one that destroys. Michael stands at the right hand of God, ready to serve. Michael defeats that great dragon they call Satan in single combat and casts him out of heaven. But as he fell, he grabbed onto Michael's wings, pulling him down with him. It was only through the hand of God that Michael was saved from falling with him. This might be a metaphor for him becoming so evil, so psychopathic himself to defeat Satan in combat, that he stared too long into the abyss and became lost in battle frenzy. Among my ancestors, they had Viking warriors called berserkers who ingested the psychoactive fungus, flugsvamp, as we call it in Sweden, more commonly known as toadstool in English. Some speculate that they actually used henbane, but either way, both are deliriums. When they consumed this plant or fungus and went into battle, they would sometimes get lost in a frenzy and start slashing at even their own warriors. Frenzy warriors wearing the skins of wolves called Ulfunar, wolf skinners, or possibly wolf heathens, are mentioned in the Vasdela saga, the Haraldsrottkoi and Grettis saga, and are consistently referred to in the sagas as a group of berserkers, always presented as the elite following of the first Norwegian king Harald Farhair. They were said to wear the pelts of wolf over their chainmail when they enter battle. Unlike berserkers, direct references to Ulfunar are scant. Egil's saga features a man called Kveldulf, Evening Wolf, who is said to have transformed into a wolf at night. This Kveldulf is described as a berserker, as opposed to an Ufoheim. Ulfhunar are sometimes described as Odin's special warriors. Odin's men went without their mail coats and were mad as hounds or wolves, bit their shields. They slew men, but neither fire nor iron had effect upon them. This is called going berserker. In addition, the Helmplate press from Torslunda depicts a scene of a one-eyed warrior with a bird-horned helm, assumed to be Odin, next to a wolf-headed warrior armed with a spear and a sword, as distinguishing features, assumed to be a berserker with a wolf pelt. A wolf-skinned warrior with the apparently one-eyed dancer in the bird-horned helm, which is generally interpreted as showing a scene indicative of a relationship between Berserker gang and the god Odin. They were Woden's warriors, and he was known as the Fetterloosener. Woden's day is of course Wednesday, which is Dies Mercury in Latin, and Enki is the god associated with the planet Mercury. He, Enlil, was furious with the Ajiji. We, the great Anuna, all of us, agreed together on a plan. Anu and Adad were to guard above. I was to guard the earth below. Where Enki went, he was to undo the chain and set us free. He was to release, produce for the people. He was to exercise control by holding the balance. One Sumerian creation myth goes that in the beginning, Anu and Ki were at first inseparable, until Enlil cleaved them apart, creating our world. This same basic story can be found all over the earth, for instance in Maori legend. In their myth, Rangi, the Sky Father, and Papa, the Earth Mother, were initially locked in a tight embrace. Rangi and Papa were so closely entwined that their many children were born in the darkness between them. The children, tired of the cramped and dark conditions, decided to separate their parents. The strongest of the children, Tain, god of forests and birds, lay on his back and used his legs to push Rangi up into the sky, away from Papa. This separation brought light and space into the world, creating the universe as we know it. After the separation, Rangi and Papa grieved for each other, and their tears became the rains and the mists, showing their eternal longing and sorrow for being apart. Now we are coming to the end of this video. This was an 8-page script that took a long time to write, record and edit. So if you made it this far, then please consider checking out my Patreon, where you will get access to all my scripts, which include all my sources. I could easily introduce Patreon specific videos, but I have chosen not to. Feel like if the information is useful and important, then it should not be behind a paywall. And if the information is not useful and important, then why would you pay for it? I am a researcher foremost, not an entertainer. I would actually say I am more of an author than a content creator. Even though I have not released a book so far, I have hundreds of pages of scripts that can be compiled into one, with some effort. Anyways, please leave a comment below, please feel free to share the video, and I will see you in the next one, mortals.